Okay, this is Jimmy Jive, and you're listening to Motor City Rock Talk. Today, my guest is one of the founding members of Detroit legendary band The Romantics. He's also done solo work. My guest today is Mike Skill, guitar player. How you doing tonight, Mike?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks, Jimmy.
To start off a little bit, I know you guys were basically East Side, or I'm guessing you're an East Side band, The Romantics.
We were totally East Side, yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Where exactly did you guys hook up as far as the foundation of The Romantics?
Me and Jimmy Marinos, the drummer, went to high school together.
Oh,
and we
okay.
played. We had a few bands. This is late '60s.
Yeah.
Late '60s on the East Side of Detroit. Went to Fitting High School. I had moved from the Lower East Side down there in I forget what they call it now. Down there in Lakewood and Jefferson area, Chalmers and Jefferson.
Okay.
Chalmers Jefferson district. That's where I grew up. Went to Jackson Junior High, and then went over to Finney High School. Met Jimmy. He had a little band. I had a little band for that from the other neighborhood, but they kind of splintered. Went into high school and met those guys. Jimmy had a little group. He was a drummer and a bass player and a guitar player. Bass player wasn't very good. They asked me to come over and jam. I came over and jam, and that's what started it. Around 1968. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, we were youngsters.
What was the name of that? Do you remember any of that?
I think at one point it was called Smoke.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
But there was another band. We found out there was another band called that had albums out and stuff later on in the early 70s. So we're on the East Side, and we get out. We're in high school. We start jamming. We jam with a friend of mine in art class. Introduced us to Robert Gillespie, and Gillespie was going to Denby High School. We started rehearsing in Jimmy's bass. He was playing through 100-watt trainers, and I had Sun amps and stuff. It wasn't going to last too long, so we had to move out of that basement. We went to my basement. Then we moved out of my basement, and when you got out of high school back then, most bands that were serious about what they were doing, they got a little storefront on the East Side. So this band called from Denby was Dobie's Itch. They were playing the Grandy and stuff. They were a local. Yeah, they were playing the Grandy, a real young band, 17, 18, 19. And we were just learning how to write songs. So we got the studio, and we constantly had a studio all through the 70s. All through the 70s, we had 2 or 3 or 4 little East Side on Chalmers and 7 Mile, little storefronts. We put the egg cartons up and all the foam and all that. And we go there every day. Every day we were going there writing songs, learning how to write songs. And at that time, there were only bars that were like, when we were young, the bars were like, they were for older folks, like doing a piano bar.
Right.
So there'd be a lady coming in sing with a piano player, or a guy would be there with a sax player. It was really grown up, kind of like, there was no rock and roll in bars.
Contemporary.
It was in the teen clubs and the Hideout and those kind of clubs. The Hideout was one of them, and what was the other? But then around 67, 68, all the teen clubs opened up, and the Grandy opened up after that.
Okay.
So we were still bouncing around, but we weren't going to play. You get into the middle 70s, a lot of bands were playing the bars, and the bars opened up when kids could drink at 18 years old. 1972, I believe it was, when 18-year-old you could drink. The bars started having the rock and roll. Before that, the rock and roll in the bars was like soul music, which was cool, soul music or real pop, radio rock. Anyway, so we wanted to stay out of that whole thing. We did. We never really got into the 4 sets a night and all that. Me and Jimmy were always looking for the right singer. I was a bass player at the time. I played bass, although I learned the guitar first. Like in 1965, Beatles came out, and Stones and Animals. So I picked up guitar, and I was playing guitar in my first band, and we needed a bass player, so I learned bass. That was the first band was called The High Tide, and we did like a lot of Rolling Stones and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and
you were
music.
forced to doing a lot of covers, obviously, in the early days.
Yeah, well, we would play teen shows. We played our junior high school and that kind of thing, and at lunchtime at junior high, at elementary school and that kind of thing. Anyway, so we were together from 68 into the 70s. We became real serious about writing, and all through the 70s, we were going to see all the, Detroit was going through all this, the whole country was, but the gas crunch happened, and the Japanese cars took over. We were still building 20-foot cars in Detroit.
Yeah.
So the little Civic car, Honda Civic came out, so that kind of blew everything up, and it made it real difficult for these big cars, gas guzzlers were building in Detroit. So the economy tanked, and Detroit got went through a really bad time, like everybody's going through now.
Right.
Like everybody in the country now is feeling what we were feeling in Detroit in 73, 4, 5, in the early and mid 70s. Anyway, we stuck together for that whole time. We had different guys come in and come out. It was always me and Jimmy, and there was another guy would come and play harp and sing, and we'd have a keyboard player or something. We were always looking for a lead singer. All bands were looking for lead singers like Mick Jagger or Rod Stewart or Robert Plant or something like that, or Iggy. Yeah. We wanted like Iggy or Rob Tyner from the MC5. But as the New York thing happened and punk bands happened, when the New York Dolls and everybody got hip to the Velvet Underground again in the 70s, they were big. They came out in the 60s, but young bands and artists, more artsy bands, were rock and roll art bands, were discovering Velvet Underground and that kind of thing. And so we were too. And you didn't need a lead singer. We were deciding, man, we can do it ourselves. So that's what started that whole thing. And so we formed a little group, and we went and we actually played CBGB's in 1974. I think it was 74 or 5. They just opened a few years before.
I'd say that'd be real early there.
Yeah, it was Detroit was like a empty cavern. It was empty, nothing downtown.
Right.
All you had was like the Masonic Temple. The Rainbow Theater was Rainbow Club was, I think it was John Sinclair or someone like that. So they had bands downtown. The Rockets, early Rockets played there, I think. Sonic's Rendezvous band was forming, and then we formed this little group. Me, a guitar player, a harp player who sang out of key, and Jimmy, and we drove all the way to New York. We threw our drums in a big van truck. We wanted a van. There was no van available.
Yeah.
We got a 16-foot truck with just a set of drums in it,
yeah,
a twin amp in there, and it broke down in Cleveland.
Oh,
we got a new one, and both of us drove it to New York, and got to New York, and we all went in and we played. It was like a Wednesday night. Played our songs, our original songs, and Hilly Crystal had hired us, and we did it. Big deal was we got out. We put together a group. We wrote our original songs. We called up Hilly Crystal at CBGB's, and we went and did it. It was a big deal for us to be able to do that. You know, you actually went out of town and played a show.
Yeah.
And it meant something.
Yeah, for sure.
And we played all originals. We met Sylvain Thunders, and what's his name? The bass player of the Ramones, Didi Ramone. We met Didi Ramone, and so it was real successful. I mean, in that way.
Yeah.
It wasn't like super crowded. It was a medium crowd, and it went, and it was good. It was just, we went there, and then we drove back a few days later, and I think we went to see a couple of bands. We went to see the broken up New York Dolls, Thunders, and somebody else. May have been his Heartbreakers, or before his Heartbreakers.
Right.
We saw the Ramones and the Tough Darts, and different bands at that point.
Oh, really?
New York was really brewing. Really,
Yeah.
a lot of good bands coming out of New York. Yeah. We went home, and we figured we had been doing this for from high school, and this was 1975-6, and that's like 10 years almost, 68. 78. Really pounded the pavement, just me and Jimmy. Got back, time off, and at the time, what's his name from Bop Magazine? I can't think of his name right now. God, Bop Magazine and Hit Parader had all these bands and photos and stuff, and New Wave was coming out, like a new crop of new musicians coming up. A bunch of bands out of LA, a bunch of bands out of New York and London, and the punk scene was coming up. We took that time off, and this band comes out. I mean, we had heard of Flamin' Groovies from the late 60s, but
sure.
It came out with a retro kind of Kinks, Beatles, Stones thing. It was Shake Some Action. The album was called Shake Some Action, and we were always a big Dave Edmunds fan. He produced the record, and it sounded like early the stuff we grew up on, the mid '60s stuff.
Yeah.
Like Rolling Stones, Animals, Kinks. And we heard that, and I go, man, I can do that. I mean, that's the stuff I grew up on. I can write that stuff. I mean, Jimmy, I took the album, I rode my 10-speed over to his house. I think I had, I lived on the east side, and I took the album over, and the New Musical Express newspaper had a big photo of the Jam. And you know how the Jam looked? They had the skinny pants and the pointy shoes and the short hair. They looked like the early version of the Who.
Yeah.
And I go, man, I love this. And we just dug it, and we go, we got to do something. I had met Wally Palmer, and we called him up and asked him to come over and audition. And so he came over and auditioned, and I think it was a few months later, we actually formed. We went through a few little things there with different people. A girl singer, a rock and roll singer. She was like Iggy. It was really cool.
Wow.
But she couldn't sing in key. Which was all right. We didn't mind that because it was kind of arty. It was kind of Patti Smith meets Iggy. And it didn't quite go the way we wanted, and she went her way and we went ours. And we formed what became Romantic. I moved into a rehearsal space on Chalmers, and then went on Gratiot 6 Mile. And that was the beginning of it. I brought in songs from my cassette recorder, and about six of those songs became songs in the set. Six of my guitar parts. I went back to guitar because no guitar players would join. They all were, Jimmy Page. They wanted to be Jimmy Page or Jeff Beck. Which we grew up, we loved that. But we wanted to write straight songs, short songs that I wanted to write songs that people would leave the show and could sing the song after the show. So I wanted to have hooks.
Yeah, definitely
guitar hooks.
Definitely.
Yeah. Chuck Berry, and all you had to do was play like Chuck Berry or George Harrison or Dave Davies. So I ended up playing because no one else wanted to play that simple, and that's how it started. And so
cool.
That's it. That's how it started.
Now, you had mentioned these groups that you grew up listening to and how you kind of wanted to form this. As far as the first Romantics album, a lot of that to me sounds like kind of even older as far as the writing style, almost like the 50s into the 60s as far as the rockabilly, and not rockabilly, but the Chuck Berry influences, Buddy Holly.
Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of the new wave bands and punk bands they were all about early Elvis.
Sure.
Early Elvis, when he was a raw mother scratcher. What's the other guy that did Summertime Blues? Eddie Cochran.
Yeah.
Eddie Cochran. So we had a lot of
Dwayne
that.
Eddy was another one I was thinking of.
Dwayne Eddy,
yeah.
Anything that was simple chords, 3-4 chords, a really good beat and a good melody. So a lot of people were taking that from the 50s and 60s, and then early 60s, and then the mid 60s with the Kinks and Stones. So that's what we were. Yeah.
You're talking about stuff that would be very radio friendly coming out, and without having to be too arty. Because you guys, I don't think you were very arty. As far as the Romantics, it was very hook oriented. And of course, the big song, What I Like About You, that's great. But I remember the first song I heard from you guys, well, the first 2 songs that I found out later that at least one of them was actually on a 45, Tell It to Gary. But the song I thought first shouted out to me hit record was When I Look in Your Eye. That's got such a great hook. I mean, they all have great hooks, and they're all right there, and you could sing along and dance to it and everything. You had everything going on. Why was that song, was that picked by the band or by the label at the time?
First, when we released those on our own single, we released When I Look in Your Eyes, First in Line, Tell It to Carrie, and I Can't Tell You Anything. Those songs were on the first records, first singles. But you get stepping back a step. Actually, our look at what we're doing was really actually arty, because everybody was still stuck in the 70s, long hair, bell bottoms.
Oh yeah,
real frumpy and real, not even glittery. We went through the whole glitter thing. We loved the Roxy music and the glitter scene, and T-Rex, David Bowie, of course. Mott the Hoople, Nazareth, Sweet. We were going to see those bands at Masonic Temple.
The red leather and all that, to me, that lent with the skinny tie and all that. It was very, very slick and very cool looking without being too new wave,
But it took us to go through different evolutions of what we were, because we were listening. We were about, before Romantics, me and Jimmy were about to form. We liked the groups that all the girls liked. We want to go to shows where girls were not all guys. Like,
of course.
And so we were loved Roxy music and Bowie and all that.
Yeah.
It was the music, mostly for the music. It was mostly for the music, but we wanted to look good. So when the Romantics are, we had that streamlined kind of early Who look, and they were real arty at the time. When everybody's doing this other stuff, we're doing this one thing that, wow, what they're like from some other planet. I mean, we look like another planet when we first, real short hair, spiky hair. I mean, especially in Detroit in the Midwest.
Oh yeah,
not so much in New York, London, or LA. Sure. And so the first stuff we wore was stuff from the Salvation Army. We're going picking up pointed shoes from Cancellations on. There used to be a shopping district over at 7 Mile and Gratiot. Montgomery Ward, Sears, Federals, a whole shopping area there, and everybody went there. And Cancellation shoes. We were buying Beetle boots off the shelf.
Cool.
They still had Beetle boots, and we were buying these greaser shoes, pointed shoes, slip-ons and that, and skinny peg leg pants and shirts and skinny ties, and those things we wore in the clubs. We played the Red Grape. The Red Grape was a bar, and they had a Sunday night. They had new wave music. All the rest of the week it was just a bar. But so we just sweat so bad. Those things they'll fall apart. You're talking iridescent things that are 20 years old, clothes that's 20 years old, and iridescent jackets. And so we had to get something else. So we got the vinyl. We were wearing vinyl because Roxy Music wore vinyl.
Right.
And Bowie and everybody. So we were wearing red vinyl, white vinyl, black polka dot vinyl with little black polka dots in it. Pants.
That's the guy.
And we didn't do the jacket. It was really cool though. Yeah. People would come to the show to see what you're wearing,
Yeah, of course. As well, and you guys had a definite look that stood out. It was very apparent and stuff. It was a classy look too. Like you said, it wasn't just long hair and blue jeans. T-shirts and all that. You guys look totally professional.
There was nothing wrong with long hair bands.
No. I'm not saying there is, but
it was
that
just
helps
getting a
set you
little bit.
apart.
It was just getting a little bit overdone, you know.
Yeah,
Everybody was like
absolutely.
yeah.
I remember seeing you guys, first time I saw you, you guys opened up the Cars and Nick Gilder. And,
that's right. Was that
and
Cobo Hall?
Cobo or Joe Lewis? I want to say Cobo. I'm pretty sure it was Cobo.
Yeah,
and you
Cobo
guys
Hall.
came out, you had the red, I guess I thought it was leather, so maybe it was a vinyl. And you guys were on fire. And you were just so energetic, so pumped up. And Nick Gilder came out, it was like, and then the Cars came out, it was even worse. Those guys, I was so disappointed in that show, other than you. I tell people this for years. I go, because I was a fan of the Cars. You know, they were, I think it was the Candy Oats.
Good songs.
Yeah, but they were like, they could have come out as mannequins. Their show was so lackluster. But you guys were on fire. I mean, I know you were an opening act at that time and all that, but still, I mean, you came out there with the energy. And I remember thinking, like, how are these guys doing that under those lights? It's sweating like crazy wearing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but you got to remember, we were doing that in the little clubs.
Yeah, right.
We were doing that all in little clubs. We were doing the same thing. What happened was, in England and in LA and New York, bands were like, punk bands in England, people were spitting and throwing things at the bands because they didn't want them standing there like the bands of the past.
Yeah.
It was kind of a dirty love. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't fun for the bands, so they were moving around to avoid all the stuff getting thrown at them, to avoid the beer cans, the spit, and then we were doing the same things. We go to rehearsal. At one point, we had our managers throwing stuff at us so we could move around.
Oh, to teach you to move.
This was early on, and we just say, hey, how about let's try this? And then as we played live shows, I mean, it became natural. It was natural. I mean, because the MC5 moved around. The MC5.
Well, they were highly energetic also, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Iggy and the Stooges. Sure. And Wayne Kramer was dancing like James Brown, spinning around like James Brown. And Rob Tyner, was, and they choreograph their moves. You know, they do that kick, the kicks, and they bend back and they get on their knees.
Yeah.
And so we weren't going to do that, but we were going to move. We knew we could move around. So by the time we got to play with the Cars, we were already. It was second nature.
Sure, you were adjusted to that. But I'm just saying, now you're on a national stage, and doing that in the clubs is one thing, but being under the lights at a place like Cobo, that's got to be even hotter. I know you had the adrenaline, going through your veins playing there.
Well, we've been playing
stuff.
Yeah, at that point, we had opened for Cheap Trick.
Right.
We had opened for, I think we have opened for Ted Nugent somewhere along the line there. A few other bands that were on DMA, I think. Jay Giles, we opened for Jay Giles early on, too.
Oh, that would have been killer.
Yeah, I think one of them was at Cobo Hall. Then I think a couple times at Pine Knob.
Right.
I think a couple times at Pine Knob. Yeah, and you had to be really good if you opened. And the Silverdome, our third show ever played.
Really?
Our third show was at Pontiac Silverdome with Jay Giles.
Oh my God, and, that must have been rough. I mean, that place sounded like shit.
We were like, it was big in your mind, but you know what I mean. It was overwhelming. But we were getting used to being on bigger stages, and we had a lot of room,
right?
So we could actually step out of our little zone and walk across the stage a little more, and go up to the drums, and go to the side, and go to the front.
I'm talking about the overall sound, though, in a place like that, because I remember seeing, and nobody sounded good at the Silverdome. I mean, you had more room, but I mean, oh my God, it's just a horrible place. I remember seeing the Who there. God, it was the worst place, I would think, especially for a band like you guys that had a real clean, kind of poppy sound. You weren't going crazy with effects, not quite choreographed, but you needed to have that to go over.
Yep.
So as far as the song, what I like about you. How did that, like I said, get picked to be more or less the breakout single for that album? Was that the label's decision?
It wasn't. Well, first of all, it wasn't. We weren't thinking. None of us were thinking that it was anything different than any of the other songs.
Right.
I mean, it got a good response live. We were still playing clubs, a lot of clubs.
Right.
We're playing. At that time, we were probably playing a lot of. We were opening. We were going to the Agoras, the Agora theaters were in Cleveland, and I think Pittsburgh and somewhere else, Illinois maybe or somewhere. But here's what it was: is the drummer. The drummer always wanted a song. He wanted to have the song sing like Ringo always had a song.
Right.
And he goes, so he was always doing like Hippie Hippie Shake or Boys by the Beatles or whatever. I want to be your lover, baby. I want to be your man. And so we were in the clubs doing that, and he goes, Mike, why don't you come up with something for me to sing? I go, sure, man, I'll try to do that. And my songs are usually like a few chords, but they always like had a good rhythm.
Good hook. Right? Excellent hook.
Yeah, and I always think of melody. I'm always thinking melody. And when he laid down the beat, I could write really easy to what his beat was.
And you guys had great vocal harmonies too. I mean, my God.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. And we all sang. We all were lead singers. 4 guys singing in lead.
I know, and that's rare too. That was exceptional. You guys really
we always wanted to have
that.
Everybody singing. Until we got, in the studio on our second album, the producer picked out 2 guys, and then we got pushed more to the background for no good reason. But anyway, so he told me he wanted this song, and I think I was outside once, probably late summer, because I think it was warm in the afternoon and got cooler in the evening. But in my backyard, my parents had moved to. My dad retired and he moved to Fraser, Michigan, and I still lived. I was living in Detroit at some point right around that time. I moved into an apartment. I did have an apartment for a bit, and then I moved to another one my brother owned. Anyway, June goes, you need this song. I was outside, I was on a picnic table sitting, and I had this rhythm, just the rhythm in my head, 3 chords, and it was like a little different than the normal Gloria.
Right.
And it was, I always had the Yardbirds in mind, the rhythm kind of thing, the Kinks, the Animals.
Definitely the Kinks.
So, yeah, and so it's just kind of that kind of thing. And the MC5, Sonic's Rendezvous. We played a lot of shows with Sonic's Rendezvous. So Fred Smith, one of my favorite guitar players, him and Wayne, Fred Sonic Smith, God bless him. Yeah. So I came up with this chord progression, and it was a little different than the usual ones you hear on the radio, and it had a strum to it that most people still can't do. And the intro, and most people intros can't play the intro. And I'm not going to show anybody because I'm going to let them figure it out themselves. Yeah. That's what I had to do. Exactly. That's what I had to do. I had to take the rock album in mid-60s and slow it down to 16 on the turntable.
Oh, jeez.
And learn Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page licks, and Yardbirds. Just slow it down real slow and learn them and speed it back up. And that teaches you a whole different thing. Sure. You learn, like I can hear the radio now, and I know what key it's in, I know where to play on the guitar. Yeah. I'm sure you get that too after you play a while. Anyway, so I came up with that, and I talked to Marino. So for some reason, I didn't have a car. I think either I got a ticket, and I didn't have a license at the point, or my car broke down or something, and he came out and picked me up. I was in Fraser, Michigan. My dad's house was in Fraser, Michigan. Anyway, he came and picked me up. I go, look, I got this idea. You wanted an idea. We didn't have the phone. This time we had the phone. We didn't have the phones at the time. We had cassette players, but mine was a bulky cassette player and funky tapes and everything. It was, we didn't have even the boombox. And so he says, man, jump in the back seat with your guitar and just play it. I go, no, I think I'll remember it. I think I did get in the back seat, but I think I'll remember the song. It kind of had a straight rhythm, and then it had a off rhythm. Right. It was a little different on the second. The house from 13 Mile to 7 Mile, I had to drive all that way. Well, that's not that far, but so I had to remember the song. So we got to the studio. The studio's when we had the studio, it was always really cool inside. It was clean except for around the couch and the table and that. It was a mess probably, but the rest of the studio, our equipment was set up like a stage. Yeah. And the drums. And we actually set up lights from the ceiling over our heads in the front. And then Marino, so drummer always had to have a light on his hair. And so we had a rug and stuff, and the couch way in the back. So it was like one of those really long storefronts. And so you come in, turn the lights on above the band and equipment, and then get up and turn your equipment on. Anyway, so we came in, and I started playing the chords, and he plays a beat to the chords, and I think really how he came up with some of it was he was worried that I was going to forget the song, so he goes, I'm playing the rhythm, he goes, that's it, you got it, that's what I like, that's it, I like that, I like that, yeah, I like that. That's how that started. Yeah, so he's going, I like that, that's the groove, yeah, that's what I like, that's how I think he came up, yeah, that's what I like.
So did he write the lyrics then, based on that?
Yeah, he was coming up with the groove for the melody.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I listened to first tapes, and he's on the other side of the beat. He's got the melody not on the first he's got it on the other side somehow.
Yeah.
And I haven't quite figured it out how he was doing it, but he was singing it like it was like 4 or 8 beats, 2 measures opposite of what it is now.
Right,
So,
right.
So when we got in the studio, I think it got flipped into the right order. But he I don't think he had lyrics for a full song of lyrics for it. Even when we went to the studio and recorded the first album,
Right.
he was still singing the third verse. He was still making it up, I think. So
Well, that's cool.
yeah. So he would sing like the first verse, he kind of had something, and then the second verse, he'd look at the girls in the audience and he'd sing about the girls in the audience.
Right. Related to your audience, sure.
And they had the title. And then I came up, I think we kind of both were going, hey. We're both going, hey.
Yeah.
And hey, he said it, and then I started saying it at a rhythm or something, at a rhythm in the chorus. And then I go, I think I said, I think I did
Yeah.
because I guess I can tell that. It kind of like Chuck Berry.
Right.
Hey, ooh, yeah, ooh, yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad I'm living in the USA.
Right.
Ooh, yeah.
And they created like kind of a counter hook to it, you know.
Yeah,
You get the melody line and
exactly,
corresponding with it. And that makes magic right there, yeah. And that was totally experimental in the studio. That's cool. That's really
my
great.
forte. That's what I do really well. I'll come up with simple chords, and then I'll break up the chords and do like Pete Townsend and Keith Richards. I'll turn it into little guitar hooks, and then I'll do the same thing with if you have the harmony or you have the chorus, and then I'll do the same thing. I'll flip the opposite on the verses and on the melodies and on the hook.
Right.
I'll do an opposite hook to the hook.
Now, were you writing any of the lyrics also, or were
I was throwing stuff at the guys. We were all throwing stuff in there. We're all throwing hooks and lyrics, but I was always coming up with the guitar. When I'd come in, hey man, I got something. It was always every night, every play. Hey, I got this idea. And then I had my cassette.
Yeah.
Like, I got this thing. Here. It's like this. It's kind of like this. It's kind of like the Hollies, but it kicks ass like the MC5.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right.
That's the way. And I go, here's a title, or Jimmy would have a title or
like
something.
Like a hook for a title, sure.
Yeah, play it, and I'd sing a melody. I go, no, that kind of thing.
Well, the other thing I noticed too, between the first and the third album, when you guys came out with National Breakout, all of a sudden you're going from this clean type jacket look, totally different look.
Which from where to where? From when to when?
National Breakout. The cover is like you guys are just sitting around,
Right. That led to my demise.
I'm like, because I thought that was really weird. You guys had such a clean, killer look, and all of a sudden, now they want to make you look like you're just another.
Because I didn't want to look the same with more leather suits on the second album, and keep doing that over and over again. And we ended up doing that over and over again. I wanted to look like we went into the studio. The first album was fine, and then the second album, I'm starting to get into the whole punk scene, and the Clash were kicking ass. And I'm going, man, they're raw, man. And then the rawness started coming. I'm thinking like MC5, and I'm thinking Clash, and I'm thinking like a little more, not arty. I don't want to say arty, but more street. I was thinking more street.
Definitely more street.
And so I go, well, after we record the record, we're so worn out. Why don't we just go in the street and go down the way and look like we're all beat up and worn out from recording the album?
Sure.
We just look like a Detroit band out the street, and we look like we fucking kicked ass on the album, and we're
Oh,
and
so
then,
that was your idea, which of course the label didn't like that, apparently.
I was pushing for that in a lot of ways, and and like for the videos, we were doing videos in Australia. We toured Australia before I got canned, I got fired, and they wanted to wear the same thing, and I think we did, but I wanted, because we're in Australia playing, and all the Australian bands are looking like new wave, like kind of like new wave MTV, but MTV wasn't quite, had just come around, so it was kind of changing, it was kind of like, it was becoming real, it was flowering. The whole look of the bands were flowering. You didn't have to look like you were stiff statues standing on the front of the record cover and look like the Kinks on 10 albums or the Beatles on 10 albums, or so I was pushing the envelope for art in an art way.
Right,
In a gritty art, raw, Iggy MC5 way. I'm saying let's spread out a little bit. Right. I wasn't against wearing the same thing on occasion and on in photos, and you know what I mean. Yeah. Spread it out and flower. But we went to Australia. That was on the second album, National Breakout.
Right.
So we had the first album in 1980. We went out. Came out in I think February 1980. Mm-hmm. We hit the road. We played all over U.S., all over Canada, and it was probably like July or August, probably August. I think August. I think we started the second album. We started preparing for the second album at the end of the summer, and the end of the year, we were by the end of the year, we were in the studio recording the second album. By the end of the first year,
Right.
so we were on our second album in the first year of our first album.
Yeah, I was going to say 1980.
Which is crazy.
It
That's like 1960s. You don't
Yeah.
do that. They put out 3 songs: When I Look in Your Eyes, Tell It to Carry, and What I Like. They went up the charts, and they were in the top 100. When I Look in Your Eyes, I think went up in the top 70s or 80s. And then What I Like About You was in either 47 or 74. It hit, and then it started dropping off the chart. And the management starts freaking out, and the label starts going, "Oh, you guys got to get into that, do a new album."
Right.
And we're going, "Wait a minute." Wait a minute. It takes time. We need time
Right.
from the tour.
Yeah.
Take a month off, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, go from the tour, and then come up with something, and then get back together
Right.
and go in and jam a little bit. But no, it didn't happen that way. We went on the road. We got off the road. We took either 2, 3, 4 weeks off. I think we went to Australia, so it must have been a couple of weeks. So we went to Australia, came back, started writing this next album. And here you go. We go. I think I'm mixing this up. Then the album comes out, and we went to Australia.
Right.
My album comes out. We went to Australia because we're playing the second album
Already.
on
Yeah.
tour in Australia instead of the first album. It was
Oh,
stupid. It
geez.
was so stupid. We should have been playing the first album. And I'm coming out of the studio and in the pre-production for the tour, and I'm trying to learn the solos. And I was writing solos in the studio and all the parts in the studio. And I'm like, was not prepared. I didn't prepare myself well enough. So I had okay shows, not great shows, because I was still flopping on parts and stuff like that. And I wasn't.
You had to
I
be
was
tired, man. Oh
I
my
wasn't.
God.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Burn.
And then you're dealing with first album and big shows and tours and big stadium.
Right.
And so your head's spinning.
Yeah,
Your head
of
is
course.
spinning.
My God, that's a lot of
Your head's
pressure.
spinning. Yeah, and so it's my fault in ways, and band fault, and management fault, and label fault. And it's just that was a bad thing. And then my creative spark and ideas to the band, they didn't want to hear it. They went and did a third album. Then that tanked.
It sounded like they wanted to keep you guys. This is what worked on the first album. Keep writing
Yeah.
that and forcing you to do that instead of breaking out into something more of what you wanted to do as an artist.
Well, it was really internal. It was a lot of internal, and and it was, and things were changing in the industry, in the
Sure.
music, in the scene.
Yeah.
The scene as well. The industry. First of all, the industry didn't know how to sell us very well. We survived by playing live and making the magic.
Right.
And then the songs, we did get airplay, but they
Yeah.
still didn't fit in with Kansas and
Right.
Styx and all that stuff that was going on.
Right.
And later Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
All that stuff that was coming out, Jethro Tull, all that stuff. We're fighting. The Clash, we're out and running into people, all the bands. Elvis Costello, we're running into the elevators. We're going to a hotel to do a show, and he's going to do a show. Elvis Costello, I go, hey, Elvis, we just came out from Detroit. How you doing? Good to see you. Because I just came from all the way from England. I go, yeah. Have a good show. We were on the road with the Police. We're on the first album from the Police came out. We were doing
Right.
clubs with the Police. And anyway, so what I'm getting at is first album and the second album still have the good rock vibe like the first and second album. So when I came back in, by the time I came in that year and a half, the scene from Europe changed. It went
Right.
from the scene changed. When we first went in, it was go in the studio, kick ass. Don't overdub. Don't overdub a lot of vocals. Don't overdub a lot of guitar. Don't overdub and fix everything. It was a raw thing. It was about being raw,
Yeah.
like the 50s, 60s, and early 70s. And so it was all about quick. Go and do the studio, get in quick, and get out.
Wham bam, thank you, man.
But we had done those first songs, the albums on first songs for a long time. That was
Right.
from the first album.
Sure.
Songs from the first album. So by the time I got back in the fourth record, you got bands like Spandau Ballet.
Yeah.
You got bands like Squeeze. You got
Mhm.
bands like Niccolo with Pure Pop for Now people. These are highly produced
high
records.
level.
A lot of vocals, a lot of guitar parts. Duran Duran's coming out, I think, just around the same time. All these like dance started
Right.
happening. That's dancey rock and roll.
More pop
Yeah.
rock, yeah.
So this whole production thing, that's why when we came out with the next album, it was like more produced.
Yes.
And I had that bass line. I came back and played bass, and I had that bass line, Talking in Your Sleep.
Mhm.
We did the whole record, the whole In Heat record, 10 or 11 songs, and we recorded the whole album. And then producer comes in the room and says, "Oh, we're done." He comes in and goes, "Oh, nope, not done. You got to get it. We need one more song. You need one more song." I think he didn't tell us, but I think he said, "Well, we need one big hit. We need one for the big hit."
Yeah, he did that one breakthrough song.
Yeah, one. He goes, "Mike, what was that thing you had on the bass when we were in pre-production?" He goes, well, first of all, I was asked back in the band. First of all,
Right.
the label, they called me up on later the label told me they either had to get me back in the band or someone to write songs, an outside songwriter.
Right.
So they called me up and tail between their legs, I guess, and called me up. I go, well, we'll have to work out some things, some issues. I actually started a band. I had a band going, and I was rehearsing at Clutch Cargo's.
Right.
But then, it seemed like a good idea to get out play again. So I said, well, I'll give it a shot and see what happens. See what happens for a month or whatever. Did it, and then we went in for the album. And anyway, what was I getting at? Okay, so after we produced that record in Heat, and at the time, $70,000 or $90,000, $90,000 for the album, which isn't much really when you think about it.
Not a lot at all.
Yeah, 70,000, and we had 7-record deal. So we had a good 7-record deal.
Wow.
And we got all publishing. I think we had all our publishing. So we had a great deal.
Right.
It worked out a great deal. Unfortunately, there's some other things that happened around that, but I won't go into. And anyway, so the album came out, and it was more produced. It had a dance song on it. It had some rock on it, some rock and roll. But I think we kind of got away from the raw stuff. That kind of irks me a little bit now. Because I think
it glossed up a bit first, but the energy was still there. In my opinion, the energy of the song still there.
Yeah.
The production had changed with the time.
Yeah, the energy is still there, but the tasty. I was in and out guitar player on it. I wasn't doing all the guitars on it.
Sure.
So I would do the acoustics, and I would do some hook and stuff like that, rhythms. And then I played bass, mostly wrote all the bass stuff, because I played bass for a long time. But I like the first 2 albums are my favorites, and I think the songs are great in Heat. But if I would do it now with my guitar style, I would go in and put some raw guitar on some of those songs. I'd rock you up a little rawer. Even on Talking Your Sleep, it's kind of thin. It's dance, but it's for dance clubs.
Yeah, of course.
So it's got the But I would add MTV. You know this. I would get a Strat on, put it through a high water, a little Marshall, and I would weight out, put some more weight on that. Bow down, bow down. I would put a little more weight on that, and same with the bass. I would open it up to a little more without sounding.
Well, you were saying raw.
A little more. A little tiny bit more Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Okay. Yeah.
Not so much blues, but a little more
raw and a little bit more. As far
as I would let mistakes happen and leave them in.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was I getting at? So when we were designing, thinking about the cover and all that. When we first came back together, when I first came back in, we've got different jackets. We weren't wearing the same stuff. It was all black, and they were like street coats. And I love that look. It was a street leather. It was like we walked in off the street.
Yes.
You could have had a motorcycle jacket on. It was black.
Right. Exactly.
Or you could. That's what I was getting.
It wasn't glossed over, in other words. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't exactly everyone was wearing exactly the same thing.
Right.
We had a band look.
Right.
And so that's what I was getting at from all along. But anyway, like you could have worn red leather again, but everyone wore something different, red. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah, but that was cool how you changed the color. I mean, I didn't go for the pink thing, there's salmon.
Yeah, that was a meaning.
I think that looked kind of girly, but whatever. But when you guys went to the black leather, and it didn't look more straight, that was cool. I know you weren't, and I can understand why.
Well, if you notice, first 2 album covers are those covers, and then they did that.
Yeah.
They went back to that, and then the rest of the covers,
Let me ask you one last thing on the Romantic that just came to mind. I know you guys, they put out a release, King Biscuit Flower Hour, live, Romantic. Yeah. Why did you guys, or was this a label thing or a band thing? Why did you guys, you're such an energetic band live. Why did you not put out an official live album, a live video, that whole thing? That would be killer. Why did that not happen?
Well, I think, the band was more creative than the management. The manager's always coming up with ideas, but we went through that phase where we were unhappy with the managers because they weren't caring as much about the band as they were caring about the charts, which is a great thing. A royalty thing and a whole thing going on with that. Yeah. And then we move on to another manager, and we were like swimming in deep water, trying to we're still swimming in deep water, trying to do those creative ideas and throw them out there. But other things to survive had to be taken care of first.
Sure.
King Biscuit Flower Hour was a radio show. Yeah. I think it was in San Antonio. And then we also did one in Philly. There's a really good Philly tape going around somewhere. Philadelphia, we did a live radio show. And I think there was one in Ohio from the Agora.
Yeah, there are, but I'm talking about video. You're talking MTV back in the day and all that. And why, because like I said, when I saw you guys live, energetic as hell. and this would have been a killer, video, a type of thing as far as a concert video. I just wonder why that never came out. Did you? You guys have some footage like from the first tour, the first couple tours? That could be done at a later date.
Yeah, if those pop up, I'm sure that might happen. I think there was so many mechanization of the business side of it that we're trying to survive. We're lawsuits all through the late last century, late last century, then into the new century, even up into 2004, up to 2011.
Right.
We were deep in lawsuit.
Yeah,
it was hard. We couldn't. It would be questionable that anyone would put anything out on us.
Yes.
In those times when they might have been sued or might have been pulled out. It would have been difficult to pull it from the label, or the label might not give it to you.
Sure.
So we were buried in lawsuit from probably 98.
Yeah, I understand that, especially for that time.
Yeah, up until 2007, up in 2015.
But I mean, now has there ever been any talk of like trying to, or even reform the band and do anything now? I mean, guys still play.
Well, that's possible. I guess that's possible, but I don't know. Right now I'm working on. We haven't had the calls together yet to do that.
But it's a shame, man, because what a hot band live.
Yeah.
Never a letdown in any of the performances I saw, whether you were opening up or whatever.
Right.
So to me, it's kind of a shame that kind of the business part of it
I agree.
overshadows that. That's too bad, man. Well, I'm glad you're still playing and you're still doing it and all that. And obviously you've got plans.
We just did the Rodriguez show, and man, it kicked ass.
Yeah,
it kicked ass. Rodriguez was there. Sexto Rodriguez was there. Yep.
Well, man, I'm not going to keep you any longer and stuff. It's been great talking to you, man. I've learned a lot. And I wish you the best of luck. I know you're going to continue on, and that's really awesome. I'm glad that you're still playing and still recording.
Well, listen, man, Jimmy, thank you. Thanks for having me on Motor City Rock Talk.
My
man,
pleasure.
I got a new single coming out September 29th. Mm-hmm. It's called. I don't know if I'm going to tell you the title yet.
Okay.
But, new singles coming out, and you still get all my stuff on all the streaming sites.
Yeah.
Not My Business. Check out Not My Business, and all the kids and people out there can hear my version of the 40th anniversary of What I Like About You. I've got guys playing it all the time in Hawaii. Sure. It's his favorite song. He goes, man, I love that song.
Sure.
He's got his own radio show out there. He's playing it, and I really appreciate you having me on. And we'll talk again.
Man. My pleasure. It was great. Right. Great talk.
Beautiful.
All right, brother.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right.
Well, that was Mike Skill from the Romantics and beyond. This is Jimmy Jive saying, keep rocking.